A string quartet is a musical ensemble of 4 string players, a 2 violin players, a violist and a cellist, or a piece written to be performed by such a group. The string quartet is one of the most prominent chamber ensembles in classical music, with most major composers, from the late 18th century onwards, writing string quartets. The string quartet rose to prominence with the work of Joseph Haydn. Ever since Haydn's day, the string quartet has been prestigious and considered a true test of the composer's art. Quartet composition flourished in the classical era, with Mozart, Beethoven and Schubert writing famous series of quartets. A slight slackening in the pace of quartet composition occurred in the 19th century. The standard structure for a string quartet is 4 movements, with the first movement in sonata form, Allegro, in the tonic key. Second movement is a slow movement, in the subdominant key. Third movement is a minuet and trio, in the tonic key. And the fourth movement is often in rondo form or sonata rondo form, in the tonic key. Some quartets play together for many years in ensembles which may be named after the first violinist, a composer or a location. Well-known string quartets can be found in the list of string quartet ensembles. History. The origins of the string quartet can be traced back to the Baroque trio sonata, in which 2 solo instruments performed with a continuo section consisting of a bass instrument and keyboard. A very early example is a 4-part sonata for string ensemble by Gregorio Allegri that might be considered an important prototype string quartet. By the early 18th century, composers were often adding a third soloist. And moreover, it became common to omit the keyboard part, letting the cello support the bass line alone. Thus when Alessandro Scarlatti wrote a set of 6 works entitled Sonata a quattro per 2 violini, violetta, viola, e violoncello senza cembalo, this was a natural evolution from existing tradition. Wyn Jones also suggests another possible source for the string quartet, namely the widespread practice of playing works written for string orchestra, such as divertimenti and serenades, with just 4 players, 1 to a part, there being no separate contrabasso part in string scoring before the 19th century. The string quartet rose to prominence with the work of Joseph Haydn. Haydn's own discovery of the quartet form appears to have arisen essentially by accident. The young composer was working for Baron Karl von Joseph Edler von Rnberg sometime around 1755 to 1757 at his country estate in Weinzierl, about 50 miles from Vienna. The Baron wanted to hear music, and the available players happened to be 2 violinists, a violist, and a cellist. Haydn's early biographer Georg August Griesinger tells the story thus. The following purely chance circumstance had led him to try his luck at the composition of quartets. A Baron von Rnberg had a place in Weinzierl, several stages from Vienna, and he invited from time to time his pastor, his manager, Haydn, and Albrechtsberger in order to have a little music. Von Rnberg requested Haydn to compose something that could be performed by these 4 amateurs. Haydn, then 18 years old, took up this proposal, and so originated his first quartet which, immediately it appeared, received such general approval that Haydn took courage to work further in this form. Haydn went on to write 9 other quartets around this time. These works were published as his Op. 1 and Op. 2. 1 quartet went unpublished, and some of the early quartets are actually symphonies missing their wind parts. They have 5 movements and take the form, fast movement, minuet and trio I, slow movement, minuet and trio II, and fast finale. As Fincher notes, they draw stylistically on the Austrian divertimento tradition. Haydn then ceased to write quartets for a number of years, but took up the genre again in 1769 to 1772 with the 18 quartets of Ops 9, 17, and 20. These are written in a form that became established as standard both for Haydn and for other composers, namely 4 movements, consisting of a fast movement, a slow movement, a minuet and trio and a fast finale. Ever since Haydn's day, the string quartet has been prestigious and considered a true test of the composer's art. This may be partly because the palette of sound is more restricted than with orchestral music, forcing the music to stand more on its own rather than relying on tonal color. or from the inherently contrapuntal tendency in music written for four equal instruments. Quartet composition flourished in the classical era, with Mozart, Beethoven and Schubert writing famous series of quartets to set alongside Haydn's. A slight slackening in the pace of quartet composition occurred in the 19th century. Here, composers often wrote only one quartet, perhaps to show that they could fully command this hallowed genre, although Antoine Endvaux unregistered trademark AK wrote a series of 14. With the onset of the modern era of classical music, the quartet returned to full popularity among composers, and played a key role in the development of Arnold Schoenberg, bar copyright La Barta Cubed K, and Dmitri Shostakovich especially. After WWII, some composers, such as Pierre Boulez and Olivier Messiaen, questioned the relevance of the string quartet and avoided writing them. However, from the 1960s onwards, many composers have shown a renewed interest in the genre. String quartet traditional form, a composition for four players of stringed instruments may be in any form. Quartets written in the classical period usually have four movements with a large-scale structure similar to that of a symphony. First movement, sonata form, Allegro, in the tonic key. Second movement, slow, in the subdominant key. Third movement, Minuet and Trio, in the tonic key. Fourth movement, Rondo form or Sonata Rondo form, in the tonic key. Substantial modifications to the typical structure were already achieved in Beethoven's later quartets, and despite some notable examples to the contrary, composers writing in the 20th century increasingly abandoned this structure. Variations of string quartet. Many other chamber groups can be seen as modifications of the string quartet. The string quintet is a string quartet with an extra viola, cello or double bass. The string trio has one violin, a viola, and a cello. The piano quintet is a string quartet with an added piano. The piano quartet is a string quartet with one of the violins replaced by a piano. And the clarinet quintet is a string quartet with an added clarinet. It is also possible to find compositions for string sextet and string octet. Notable string quartets. Some of the most popular or widely acclaimed works for string quartet include Joseph Haydn's 68 string quartets, in particular Op. 20, Op. 33, Op. 76 and Op. 64, No. 5. Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart's 23 string quartets, in particular K465, Ludwig van Beethoven's 18 string quartets, in particular the 5 middle quartets Op. 59 Nos. 1-3, Op. 74 and Op. 95 as well as the 5 late quartets, Op. 127 in E-flat major, Op. 130 in B-flat major, Op. 131 in C-sharp minor, Op. 135 in F major and the Gross Fugue B-flat major Op. 133, the original final movement of Op. 130. Franz Schubert String Quartet D810, Felix Mendelssohn's String Quartet No. 2, Johannes Brahms 3 string quartets, Op. 51 No. 1, Op. 51 No. 2 and Op. 67, Beda unregistered trademark X. Smetana's String Quartet No. 1 in E minor, From My Life, widely considered the first piece of chamber program music. Antoine Endvaux unregistered trademark AK's String Quartets No. 9-14, particularly String Quartet No. 12 in F major, American. Also No. 3 is an exceptionally long quartet, Gian Sibelius's String Quartet in D minor, Op. 56, Voces Intimao, Leo Jana Infinite X2 string quartets, String Quartet No. 1, Kreutzer Sonata, inspired by Leo Tolstoy's novel The Kreutzer Sonata, itself named after Beethoven's Kreutzer Sonata. And his second string quartet, Intimate Letters, Arnold Schoenberg's 4 string quartets, No. 1 Op. 7 No. 2 Op. 10, No. 3 Op. 30 and No. 4 Op. 37, bar copyright La Barta Cubed K's 6 string quartets, Oldenburg's String Quartet, Op. 3 and Lyric Suite, later adapted for string orchestra, Dmitri Shostakovich's 15 string quartets, in particular the String Quartet No. 8 in C minor, Op. 110, and No. 15 Op. 144 and 6 Adagio movements, Elliott Cutter's 5 string quartets, Gyar Paragraph are G. Y. Ligeti's 2 string quartets, especially his second string quartet, Morton Feldman's string quartet No. 2, exceptionally long quartet, Karl-Heinz Stockhausen's helicopter Streich quartet, to be played by the 4 musicians in 4 helicopters, Helmut Lachenmann's 3 string quartets, Gran Torso, Reagents Elijah Guster and Griodo, Georges Lentz's pre-recorded 6-hour sound art cross-media works string quartet, S, accompanied by an original painting by Australian Aboriginal artist Kathleen Petier, Brian Ferneyhaugh's 6 string quartets, Salvatore Sairino's 9 string quartets, Wolfgang Riem's 13 string quartets. Other composers of string quartets can be found at List of string quartet composers. String quartets, whereas individual string players often group together to make ad hoc string quartets, others continue to play together for many years in ensembles which may be named after the first violinist, a composer or a location. Established quartets may undergo changes in membership whilst retaining their original name. Well-known string quartets can be found in the list of string quartet ensembles. Footnotes. References: Fincher, Ludwig Joseph Haydn on Seinzeit. Lorber, Germany, Lorber. Griesinger, Georg August. Biographical notes concerning Joseph Haydn. Leipzig, Breitkut und Hochcurrency RTEL. English translation by Vernon Gottwals, in Haydn, 2 Contemporary Portraits. Milwaukee, University of Wisconsin Press. Griffiths, Paul, String Quartet, article in the New Grove Dictionary of Music and Musicians. Webster, James, and Georg Feder, Joseph Haydn, article in the New Grove Dictionary of Music and Musicians. Published separately as a book, The New Grove Haydn. Wyn Jones, David. The Origins of the Quartet in Robinstowl, ed., The Cambridge Companion to the String Quartet. Cambridge University Press. ISBN 0-521-00042-4. Further reading, Francis Vuibert. Ra Copyright Batois Universal du Quatuor Records, Pro Quartet CEMC. ISBN 978-2-9531544-0-5. David Bloom. The Art of Quartet Playing, The Guarnieri Quartet in Conversation with David Bloom, New York, Alfred A. Knopf Incorporated. ISBN 0-395-53985-0. Arnold Steinhardt Indivisible by 4, Farah, Strauss Giroux. ISBN 0-374-52700-8, Edith Eisler. 21st Century String Quartets, String Letter Publishing. ISBN 1-890490-15-6, Paul Griffiths. The String Quartet, A History, New York, Thames and Hudson. ISBN 0-500-01311-X, David Rounds, The Four and the One, In Praise of String Quartets, Fort Bragg, California, Lost Coast Press. ISBN 1-882-897-26-9. Robinstowl, ed. The Cambridge Companion to the String Quartet, Cambridge, Cambridge University Press. ISBN 0-521-00042-4. A General Guide to the History of String Quartet Ensembles, Their Repertory, and Performance. Charles Rosen. The Classical Style, Haydn, Mozart, Beethoven, Faber and Faber. ISBN 0-571-10234-4, ISBN 0-571-09118-0. Reginald Barrett Ayres. Joseph Haydn and a String Quartet, Schirmer Books. ISBN 0-02-870400-2. Hans Keller. The Great Haydn Quartets, Their Interpretation, J. M. Dent. ISBN 0-460-86107-7. External links: Greg Sando, Introducing String Quartets at the Wayback Machine, A Brief History of the Development of the String Quartet up to Beethoven, Beethoven's String Quartets, Art of the States, String Quartet Works for String Quartet by American Composers, String Quartet Soundbites from Lesser-Known Composers, for example Onlo, Viotti, Reinberger, Gretchaninov, Atomurov, Kiel, Bisny and many more. European Archive String Quartet recordings on copyright-free LPs at the European Archive. Shostakovich, The String Quartets, String Quartet Compositions and Performers since about 1914 and the connections between them.